Well, I had just fed him, and it was like an hour, and I jumped up, and um, I'm like, oh my God, he's not breathing.
Teresa Rosenthal's twin sons were just 10 weeks old when one of them, Tristan, died of sudden infant death syndrome. Her desperate pleas to God seemed to be ignored.
I was begging him to let him live, and he didn't live.
A couple months later, Teresa was in her backyard warming herself by a fire pit when the pain completely engulfed her.
Why am I sitting here doing all this suffering in life? I just poured gas, all over me, was fixing to step into the fire.
But it was more than losing her son that sent Teresa over the edge. She'd already endured a lifetime of abuse, starting with her alcoholic dad.
I just wanted to be able to love my father and not be scared of him. He would spank you harder than you needed, and just like no reason. I mean, he would beat my mother sometimes, and it's like you didn't want to hear it, but you had to hear to make sure that she was okay. My father would switch from being happy to being mean and abusive, and that's how I perceived how God was.
Then there was the babysitter. For 6 months, he molested Teresa each time he came. She was just 5.
He would say that he was doing that because I was being bad, and he knew I was scared of my father. Father's going to beat you, your mother's not going to love you.
Noticing a change in her daughter, Teresa's mom asked if something was wrong, but the 5-year-old was paralyzed by fear and said no.
Inside, I was screaming for help. Make him stop, somebody help me, but it never came out. The main thing that stuck was, I was being bad and it was my fault, and I started believing it.
Her mom figured something was going on and stopped using the sitter. A few years later, Teresa's dad died, and she was left to grow up with the ugly scars of abuse. At 12, she found alcohol helped with the pain.
Oh man, I was just shut down. I was isolated emotionally. I was messed up, and I just withdrew. Before I was even 21, I was out drinking in the bars and drinking quite regularly.
Hoping a loving family of her own would fix everything, Teresa married at 20. But she was too emotionally fragile to allow anyone to love or even touch her.
I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I felt guilty and ashamed.
2 years in, Teresa gave birth to their daughter, but her husband soon left them. For years, she would fall deeper into depression and alcoholism. At 30, she and a boyfriend had the twins. And that's when Tristan died of SIDS. Teresa doused herself with gas and planned to end it all. Her 8-year-old daughter walked out in time to stop her.
I believe that God was punishing me for the sexual abuse, that happened as I was a child. What am I even here for? Nobody can love me.
In the coming years, the only things keeping her going were her 2 kids, alcohol, and later drugs. She landed in jail several times on DUI charges. During her last stint, she met some women from a jail ministry.
And they would play some Jesus songs before they would, bring a word. And, I'm not really understanding what they're saying, but they sparked my interest, and I just believe it was God making a way.
Still, Teresa kept them at arm's length. That is, until she got out and found her house vandalized and her car impounded. With no one to turn to, she called the ministry asking for help. 2 ladies came to comfort Teresa and invited her to church.
I never, ever felt a feeling like that ever before in my life. It was just so, powerful and peaceful. He was preaching on Joseph. I guess I seen, everything that Joseph went through. I think for the first time in my life, I had some hope. When he got done, I just went up to the altar, and the pastor prayed with me, and I gave my heart to the Lord, and it just brought something that I'd never felt. I didn't want to drink, or do drugs. I remember when I went to that first church service, I had no desire. I didn't have withdrawals.
As Teresa began to trust God, she opened up about her past to a therapy group and discovered God's love for her.
She said, God said he has been trying to love you for such a long, long time. If you will open that wall down and let him in, he will pour more love on you, all the love that you've missed out on. It's when he pulled out the abuse and just started walking me through that healing process. That session opened me up, where I believed that God was real and that he loved me. The shame and all that, I think I was healed of that pretty quickly.
In time, she also forgave her father and her abuser.
Asking God from my heart, to forgive him and let him turn to him and touch him like he touched me. That forgiveness is the key to it all.
Teresa now helps other women to heal from their traumas, focusing on where she found genuine, lasting love.
Reading the Bible. I seen God was love, and it's a fallen world. God didn't cause that to happen. Jesus, he died for me because he loves me, and he set me free. And I'm nothing without him, and I love him with all my heart.